let's look at the pillar of anticipation and the pillar of timing. These are two very important pillars. So firstly, anticipation. Two key methods: futures, emerging issues analysis. What is that?
Emerging issues analysis is what is invented by Graham Walter. It's a simple S-curve. On the right-hand side, here's the problems. We usually focus on the problems. The middle are the trends, where there's some quantitative data. Emerging issues says, let's focus on the bottom of the S-curve. These are highly unlikely, but high impact events that could change the trajectory of where we're going.
So this is really changing that analysis around the pushes, which could be very much associated with the problem top.
Yes.
Which holds our focus in the present.
So emerging issues are weak signals. So they're things that you can hear but not quite hear, but they could be quite dramatic. You need to be on top of it.
So they would obviously potentially have influence and significant shift if they are occurring.
Yeah. So for example, 3D printing. What if every home had a 3D printer?
Yeah, that's a good example.
Or 3D printing of pizza, a 3D printer in your kitchen. Or what if we went from the hierarchy model to the peer-to-peer model? What if there was dramatic climate change where sea level goes up by a meter in Sydney in 2050?
So the intention then of the emerging issues method is really then to try and map on how these signals are travelling through time.
Well, there's two. One intention is to say what's changing and how do I need to be alert to it.
So this type of analysis done in the emerging issue really is about trying to extend our sense of foresight around both not only the present but also the future.
Yeah, you're extending the horizons. Normal frameworks are horizon 1, what's happening today. Horizon 2 goes out further. This is horizon 3 thinking, 10, 15, 20 years. Clearly every house today won't have a 3D printer, but perhaps by 2025 it could happen. What do I need to do in an organization to make use of that, or if I don't want it, to prevent it?
Yes, because I can imagine that most of our focus when it comes to issue analysis keeps us very much located in the present and very sort of in the now, so to speak.
So as one trucking company, what happens if everyone has a 3D printer? So then we use the futures wheel. We take the emerging issue and we, on a flip chart, put the issue in the middle. And then we look at first and second order implications. So if every house has a 3D printer, possibility one is, well, trucking goes out of business because everything is being done in-house. That means manufacturing gets hit. What are the implications of that? But someone says, wait a second, 3D printers will still need ingredients. Or we're the ones who ship the 3D printers. That's another alternative. So we're asking, if something occurs, what might happen, what might happen, what might happen?
So I would imagine if I'm facilitating this method that it'd be easier to identify the problems at the top of the S-curve.
Yeah.
Not so hard. I imagine it would be harder to try and find those emerging issues because if they're only weak signals, how do I recognize them?
One is you want to always be looking at tons of articles in the newspaper, magazines, the web, saying what's new, what isn't new. That's one idea. Second, there's a whole range of fantastic web services that do that service for you. They present you, here's the latest in robotics, here's the latest in caring, here's the new data on demographics.
So to add some robustness to this analysis, I could bring in some environmental scanning results and then try and make sense of it through the emerging issues analysis.
So if you were a scientist looking at biosecurity, you'd have a network of people doing scanning, looking for what are the potential new zoonotic diseases that could go from animal to human.
So there's some pre-work potentially that would add to this process, but also I can use the subjectivity of who are the opinions in the room at the time and their intelligence.
So they could be scanning all the time, or you could have a one-day retreat every year and ask managers, experts, your stakeholders, what's different, what's disruptive coming the next 10, 15 years.
Have you observed any adverse reactions to this method from participants?
No, people like it. People enjoy thinking, what's next?
See, I have a story where I've seen
tell me.
where leaders actually get really nervous by this method because potentially there's a lot of benefit to them by solving complex problems.
That's true too.
Creates a great following. But if I try to mitigate and solve problems before they've emerged, how do I play that role?
I do my best to ensure, if you've done the earlier parts, we're here to solve tomorrow's problems today. Now certainly in the process you do get people getting very upset because say suddenly you decide you're insuring, for example, trucks, and now you're moving to a situation, well, we're not going to do that. We're going to actually create new bioinformation systems to monitor the truck drivers so we have safer futures. Now the person in charge of the insurance part suddenly sees, oh my God, this emerging issue is changing the game.
Yes.
So whatever the example is, those vested to the used future will find it difficult. So the pre-work to make sure everyone's on side, we're going to challenge the established future, we're going to go in different directions.
So in one sense, clues and cues come from emerging issues to be able to think of alternatives and adaptations.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, wonderful. So emerging issues analysis helps us sort of get ahead of that change process.
Yes.
Alrighty-o. Second method, futures wheel. My understanding is it's really about trying to take a topical issue that is of great concern or focus or interest and then trying to extend our sense of foresight of the consequences.
Yes.
Is this
First and second order consequences, as the example with 3D printing. If we have 3D printers, what are the implications? What are the implications?
So this method actually really stimulates or pokes our incentive or motivations for doing foresight work.
The challenge with the futures wheel is most people can figure out the first order. So if there's aging population, we know, of course, there'll be more old people.
Right.
Now, what are the implications of that? That's what we have to figure out. Does it mean change in city design, hospital design, or does it mean change in school system design, ensuring that retired principals have a way to mentor? Does it mean generational wars? So the future wheel starts to map out the implications of a particular emerging issue, aging, for example, or 3D printers, or climate change.
So in some sense, what we're doing again is extending our sense of foresight of what the future may, expanding it and expanding it, and that potentially we can make some reasonable assumptions and forecasts based on this type.
It would change your strategy then. For example, if there's
creates
3D,
choice.
if there's artificial meat or 3D printers producing food, and you're in the agriculture industry, oh my God, what might it do to agriculture? Do we stay the current trajectory, or do we create a niche, or do we create a niche market? What do we do differently?
So this is almost like trying to understand the ripple of change.
Yes, beautiful, beautiful.
So which then takes me to then the pillar of
I like that
timing.
ripple of change. It's like you throw a rock
Yes,
in a lake.
that's the issue.
Where does the ripple go?
Ah.
So that's beautiful. That's a great way. That's a great way to think of it.
And I suppose then, linking now to the pillar of timing. We spoke earlier about this in the introduction, about it understanding patterns and the patterns in change. So the ripple is a pattern.
Yes. When we look at timing, I try to keep it quite focused. I say generally our research suggests there's about 4 patterns. There's linear going upwards, cyclical going downwards, pendulum back and forth, and spiral, which has linear plus the past as well. So I ask groups, okay, in your organization, what things are going upwards? Do you think the future will be brighter? Another group would say, what things are cyclical, going downwards? A third could ask, what are the pendulums of my organization? Is it centralization, decentralization, science, or society?
So what I'm hearing here is that once people make sense of an emerging issue or an issue through a futures wheel or as a ripple of consequences, then understanding where that might be in a pattern of change.
Yes.
There's a series of questions I need to ask as a facilitator.
Yeah.
To be able to make sense or try and interpret what are these implications or consequences.
Yeah, the patterning leads to better insight. What is the deeper pattern in my organization, my country, the planet?
And where am I within that?
Yes, exactly. Or where is my organization or institution or country? And these patterns change over time. In Asia, the pattern 30, 40 years ago tended to be cyclical, rise and fall. If you go to East Asia now, the pattern is very clear, linear.
So these
More production, more wealth, people living longer, the future is very bright.
create space then for alternative thinking, these methods.
Well, the timing, what it does, it gives you insight into the trajectory, and then you can ask, well, my God, we're going downwards, what do we do differently?
So this is not space, it's more about choice.
It's choice. Where is choice? And that leads, of course, to the 4th pillar, deepening, which is what's my metaphor of choice?
Which we'll talk about in the next session.
Yes.
So, any takeaway or key messages you want to leave with the
Well,
participants?
with mapping the future, see it as a map. Use the futures triangle. What's pulling, what's pushing, what's the weight? With anticipating, always ask yourself, what are the emerging issues? What's new? Right now, emerging issue is a wealthy, unified Africa.
What are the risks if I do nothing?
That's even better. And the third takeaway with the timing of the future is what is the shape of the future in my organization, in my own life? Do I need to change anything?